Your lesson essential question is, how do we compare two versions of the same story? So you're going to be looking at two different versions of the same story or similar stories, and we'll be comparing and contrasting them. Yesterday you looked at two pictures from two versions of Little Red Riding Hood, and you completed an assignment where you talked about how the characters were the same and different. You talked about the setting and how it was the same and different. Now we're going to look at some actual texts. You've learned in the past that characters respond to events and challenges throughout stories and often learn a lesson. We call the lesson a moral or central message. I want you to think about those challenges that they're facing. Remember, that's the problem that the characters are facing. When they respond, they eventually come to a solution to a problem. So we'll be looking at problem and solution and how they're the same and different. Stories might present different versions that teach us the same lesson or similar lessons. So when we're reading, we're going to first identify the problem that the characters are facing in each story. That's something you've done before. As you're reading, you're going to identify how the characters respond throughout the story. So first we'll identify the problem at the beginning, the characters' responses throughout the middle, and then of course in the end we'll identify the problem. Then we'll look at the lesson or the moral or the central message. And we know that all three of those words mean the same thing. They all mean the lesson that the characters are learning. Once we've done all of that, now it's time to compare the stories. So we'll look at how the characters, the setting, the beginning, middle, and end, or the problem and solution, and even that lesson are the same or different. So we're going to read The Turtle and the Rabbit and The Fox and the Snail, and we're going to identify some of the similarities and differences together. The Turtle and the Rabbit. No one in all the forest is faster than I am, Rabbit boasted to the other animals one day, and I can prove it. Who wants to race me? None of the animals accepted Rabbit's challenge except for Turtle. I will race you, he said rather slowly. Take a second and identify the characters in this story. Our characters are Rabbit and Turtle. You, Rabbit said, what a joke. I'll be at the finish line before you've even started. As soon as the race begins, Rabbit hopped away at great speed. After a while, he was so far ahead that he decided to take a nap. Turtle, on the other hand, did not stop for a minute. He just kept going and going and going. When Rabbit finally woke up, he saw Turtle nearing the finish line. Rabbit ran as fast as he could, but Turtle won. Steady wins the race, Turtle said rather slowly as always. Now let's look at the fox and the snail. Fox asked Snail to run a race with him to the next town. Fox took off running, but then he decided to take a nap. Who are our characters in this story? Okay, we have Fox and we have Snail. When Snail saw the sleeping fox, he climbed into his bushy tail. When Fox woke up, he ran to the town's gate. He turned and called out, Snail, where are you? Snail quietly dropped out of Fox's tail. I'm already here, Snail said from behind him. What took you so long? So, did Snail really win the race? Snail didn't actually win the race. He tricked the fox by hiding in his tail, unlike Turtle, who actually did win the race. Let's talk about some of these similarities and differences. We know that both stories are about a fast animal and a slow animal. We know the fast animal wants to race because he thinks he'll win. The fast animal takes a nap during the race in both stories. And then in the end, the fast animal ends up losing the race. Now let's talk about how these stories are different. Who are our characters in the first story? Rabbit and Turtle are our characters. How is this different from the second story? The second story is about Turtle and Rabbit. I know in my first story, Turtle keeps going while Rabbit is sleeping. How is that different from how Snail responds to the fox's nap? Snail does not keep going. Snail hides in Fox's tail while he's sleeping so that he can get a ride to the end. So Turtle keeps going, but Snail tricks Fox. In the end, I know that the turtle and the rabbit, we learn a lesson. Slow and steady wins the race. So if you're going nice and slow, you'll do a better job. Your assignment today is to identify a lesson that can be learned from the fox and the snail and talk about how it's the same or different from the central message of the turtle and the rabbit.